Uh, Good morning, and maybe I can start off by saying that since I come from the lakeside, I heard you introducing Senator Mungatana by saying he's a PhD student. So I must also say that I'm a PhD student on governance and leadership. But do I say? But having said that, I just want to say that what Honorable Orengo has spoken to largely is issues of civil and political rights. And you're asking me to talk about social and economic rights. And I want to say that I was born and raised in this town. When I was born and raised, it was a small and dusty town. I grew up not too far from here, where is my younger years, on a street that has now been named William Ruto Street. And I was born after independence, and our parents spoke about how colonialists took away our rights and our dignity. And on the street that I grew up in, there were street lights, but then there were other amenities that were missing. But there was promise that was ripe for change, especially because the colonialists had gone away. But with the time, instead of us seeing positive move, we were actually regressing. And I'm a writer. So I started writing a novel called The Things We Lost with Freedom, because I thought we had got freedom and lost with freedom. And it's a paradox, because then we were fighting so hard to remove the colonialists and ended up losing in the process. And I was looking at it in contradiction with countries where the colonialists stayed longer, like South Africa and Zimbabwe. And you could see that they had progressed in certain things because of that. And I think it's an uncomfortable truth that a lot of us as Africans leaders don't want to deal with. That when we have been given our freedom, instead of using our freedom for progress, we use our freedom for regress. But I want to say that, fortunately, I have been forced to halt writing my book. And it is a tragedy, because I've had to halt it only because of the last probably a few years in Homa Bay, 3-4 years in Homa Bay. And the reason I halted it is because the reason I was writing this book is that I'd hoped to see the hospital bigger, better, offering better services. But it was worse than the hospital where I was born and raised in. It had gotten worse. I'd hoped the roads were tarmacked. The roads were not tarmacked. They were getting worse. Everything that we saw, we had running water in the house. There was no more running water in the house. So I was like, so why did we want freedom anyway? But that's why I'm saying it's changing in the last few years. And you can credit that to a deliberate effort by the national government towards inclusion of this area that has been marginalized for years because of being in opposition, and which is a tragedy, that we don't look at issues of inclusion and governance. You know, civil and political rights really marry a lot with social and economic rights. Because if you are not in government, then you are not served. So I would actually want to challenge our government to ensure that it doesn't matter whether people are in opposition or not, include every part of the country in development. And that is why a lot of my friends, I'm here with my friends who I told them I want you to come and experience Homa Bay. In the crowd here I have my friend who is from Nyandarua. And she was telling me, how come many places you hear people saying 1 term, and here people are just jumping saying 2 term. And I told her, if you go around here, you are seeing the roads. All these roads in reality are new. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be that development is there, and I make my decision independent of that road based on other governance facets. So what am I saying in summary? I'm saying that With the devolution, again, we are seeing now things changing. The governor for Homa Bay told us yesterday that the county government is already doing an emergency wing a unit for Homa Bay Hospital. So that's a positive change. There are many dispensaries that are coming up in the county. That's a positive change with the devolution. So our challenge, especially as governors, is we have opportunity with the devolution for purposes of social and economic rights to change the trajectory of our own counties, to bring healthcare, to bring water, ensure there's access to water, healthcare, and services. But then, of course, again, Honorable Rengo will tell you justice delayed is justice denied. Most of us think of it in terms of civil and political rights. But in this case, the justice delayed would be how quickly do governors get money from the, the national. How quickly does the money come? And for the first time, I'm happy that, and you'll confirm to us, that the CS Treasury has said that for the first time, the money has come, all the money has come in time. Because again, even if you say that you are allocating money to governors and it comes, late, then it affects planning and delivery of service. Otherwise, what I can say as a country, that we kind of had a seesaw, but in civil and in social and economic rights, our greatest hope is with the counties working effectively. Thank you.
Thank you. Millie, I want to push a little on that, and maybe to encourage you to finish your book as a PhD student. But I also want to push a little bit on that. You talked about, we were colonized, we were left with something, we lost it. The second liberation was the Constitution. So how do we go about making sure we don't lose momentum? Because what you're speaking to is actually lost momentum. We seem to gain it, then we lose it. So how do we ensure we do not lose momentum? And how do we sustain that which you're speaking to now? You're saying things are changing. We can see in Homa Bay, you're telling us the hospital you're born in is much, much better now. But how do we make sure we don't lose it?
I think for me, it's about holding the leaders accountable. And there are different arms, and that's why I'm glad that we have civil society as well, but also the National Assembly as well, and the Senate as well. And the senators would really help us by ensuring that we hold our counties accountable. And the National Assembly would help us by ensuring we hold the executive accountable. And the civil society would help us by holding the members of parliament accountable. So it's about vigilance and accountability. And if we don't sustain that vigilance and accountability, then we would regress. And one of the things that I love about the Constitution, as Honorable Rengo has indicated, can you imagine even the recent challenges we had as a country if we did not have the Constitution? It would be a tragedy that you find somebody shoots, like the guy with the mask who was shot. And if we didn't have a constitution, what would be his recourse? Yeah, of course, we hope that cases of these extrajudicial killings would stop. But because you have a constitution, you can see that now there is even a talk about compensation, which I really welcome. And maybe just to also inform you that I'm the one who came up with the Victim Protection Act. And I'm glad that we are amending it to provide a stronger framework for compensation. But we need to not have. I'd be happy if the law I passed is ineffective because we are effective as a government, so that nobody needs to be compensated. That's my dream, that nobody needs to be compensated. But unfortunately, because you have rogue people, like the guy who shot the mask, and the tragedy is he's a very young guy. He's himself a very young guy, and he shot this guy. And now it's a loss which we don't. One life lost is one life too many. So for me, I think anchorage on the Constitution is what we need. Vigilance in ensuring the Constitution is implemented is what we need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, accountability to the Constitution must be what we pursue as a nation.